Hi Taurus, welcome to your January reading. Your reading doesn't really begin until the 14th, so it's okay. Right now you're just feeling misunderstood. Mainly because people are misreading you, not because you yourself are not communicating well. But Uranus is going to go direct. Venus is retrograde until the 29th. Mercury is retrograde until February 4th. And in this interim, things want to come to a homeostasis or a balance. Anything that is too different, anything that takes you too far outside of your comfort zone, which you've been wanting to get out of, and it's been great, but certain things, they're a little too far outside. And those things have a tendency to end right now, which is also fine. I think when you're feeling as moody, and then because of that moodiness, a bit aggressive, perhaps things that require too much of you need to go. Now, why is everybody misreading you? Well, I think the Venus retrograde probably affects you more than people realize. You take so many of your cues from that energy, that free-flowing energy of being kind to oneself and being loving towards oneself and really just encompassing that whole Venusian vibe of comfort and care and love and extending that comfort and care and love to others. Venus going retrograde is, now I have all this love, but I don't know how to give it. I have all these feelings, but I don't know how to say it. I'm being pulled back into the past by something that feels like it might be able to heal me. And if someone does come to you, it doesn't even have to be someone you used to date. It's someone who left enough of an impression, got close enough to you, that if you let them, they could probably heal you of a few things. But of course, that's a decision that you should not make until after Venus goes direct. So even if you meet someone, don't just jump in. You want to really focus group this. You want your friends to be involved. You want this person vetted. But if you're wondering if the past can be healed, whether it's a recent loss or a love or some trauma that's just now made its way back to you, or some trauma you've had forever, but now it actually makes sense, there's a healing, there's a charity in it. There are parts of you that have suffered too long with this sort of isolation, abandonment, unworthiness. And now in January, moving into February, you have all this self-awareness coming in, especially about past trauma. You find yourself very compassionate towards self. This humility, if you can find it, will keep you from really embarrassing moments from mid-January to about mid-February. You're going to want to say more than you should, and you can really make things look bad for yourself if you do. You're really going to want to, but you shouldn't. It's a time where it's just so easy to say and do the wrong thing and hurt feelings and then end up regretting the thing, especially if the person on the other end is quite sensitive, which it looks like they are. It's super easy to say something from a place of ego and not only embarrass yourself, but also hurt this person deeply. And this is someone who hasn't done anything to you. But it's just like you are misunderstood, but somehow it makes you defiant. Like you love the sound of your own voice, especially when nobody can understand you. It's a very oppositional Taurus reactive thing to do. I get it. But we don't want to embarrass ourselves, because what's the point of that? There is none. So it is all about self-awareness. What happens when we feel misunderstood? It gives us some window into how we're communicating and how people are receiving us. And maybe there are some places that you can tweak. Maybe the whole idea of keeping you so misunderstood and almost isolated in January is to show you by force, why self-awareness is important. Could be. Also, until you reach that level of awareness where you're not speaking from your ego, it's very hard to tell what's needed in a situation and what solutions can be brought. It's also very hard to tell what you want, what you would be the most fulfilled by. How can you tell if you don't know yourself? How can you tell if you can't see yourself from the outside? How can you tell if you don't have any sort of recognition of yourself? If you're just a Michael Scott out here just saying whatever comes to mind, doing whatever comes to mind, how are you ever going to figure out what you really want? Now, you're lucky enough, pretty enough, smart enough that if you wanted to, you could amble through your life, sure. But I think you want stuff. I think we all want stuff. And achievements and accolades and prizes and forward motion. It doesn't have to be so fast. It can be slow. But you do want it. And once you can see yourself completely, you'll know what you want, the star, and then you slowly start making steps towards it, the Knight of Pentacles. Now, here's the other thing about self-awareness. Sometimes that means that things end. And endings are good. Endings are really good. Why? Because every ending you've had, especially recently, has led to a lot more life and a lot more abundance and a lot more luck. And you are the opposite of Scorpio. You are on the same axis. Endings are good. In a way, they fill you up because they make room for what's needed, and then it rushes in. So you leave January and you kind of waltz into February feeling really, really good. But after the middle of January, like the 19th or so, just don't spend any more money. Just don't spend any money. Just don't spend any money at all. I can't say that enough. Don't spend any money. Knight of Pentacles is already indicating that things get slow. Six of Pentacles is already telling you that things could get messy financially. Just don't spend any money. Just save for an unforeseen expense. That's it. Physically, you're tired, you're moody for most of the month. And then as the endings happen, the Nine of Cups starts to manifest and you start to feel your energy coming back. And maybe that makes you want to run out and spend some money, which is why I said 3 times already. Don't spend the money. Don't try to solve your problems with money. Yes, I'm aware I just said that to a Taurus, but don't. Now, in terms of your health, it is very possible from now until the 29th, it's easy to get either a false report or a report that has to be taken back in terms of health. So anything you find out now, you just want to get a second opinion. You want to get lots of rest. You don't want to jump to any conclusions. What I'm basically saying is that nothing is solid, and there's lots of solutions that aren't going to present themselves until after both the retrogrades are over and we start to move forward again. So until then, what is it all about? What I have written here is, are you effective or are you a liability for yourself? And I think that's a question that one can only answer when one is self-aware. In any given situation, are you effective? Do you know what's going on? Or, let's see here. Are you effective or are you a liability to yourself? Do you move forward with positivity, even when you can't see the solution? Are you optimistic and receptive to that help coming from anywhere and everywhere? Or are you sad and are you limited and are you absolutely positive that perhaps your troubles are tied to some sort of divine judgment? Oh, Tauruses will start feeling like this if they run into some bad luck, which you're absolutely not running into. But anything you do from your ego right now, whether it's spending money, mouthing off, bragging, getting into a fight, sleeping with the wrong person just because they're paying attention to you, any of that stuff that is done through the ego right now will, for you, be the reason to incur losses, big ones too. So we just don't want to do it. You want to be as humble and as aware as you possibly, oh my gosh, so sorry, as you possibly can be. And the ego will be right there waiting. But so will the choice to go internal. There's your ego and there's the humility right there. And you have to choose how you react when the answers are not readily available and you are in a holding pattern and no one really knows what's going to happen. And that safety and security that you crave, that you need all the time. You don't have it right now, and that is the test. What does that do to you? What does it bring out of you? What does that say about you? It's a lot. Love you. Hi Taurus, welcome to the second part of your reading. So, let's take a look again. Knight of Cups, Six of Pentacles. There's a kindness, a compassion, a humility that's called for right now. And it's so hard to tap into that when everyone's misunderstanding you. It's kind of a joke, right? But that's where we are, and your moodiness really, I promise you, even though it seems like it's caused by everyone around you being an idiot, it's the Venus retrograde. It's just getting to you. And Mercury retrograde makes it impossible for anyone to really communicate with each other. And we're already in that shadow period. So don't worry, that's what's going on. Now, I think what's more worrisome for you is that because you are misunderstood at this time, there's a certain facade that you are usually able to put up with some people that are really different than you. And because you're so good at putting on that facade, that connection, that relationship, whichever kind of relationship it is, it has been sustained, but mainly because, well, you're playing a role, right? Now, when communication is as choppy as it is right now for you, and your mood, which is generally pretty stable, is so all over the place, it's very hard to maintain that facade. And it becomes clear, which, it always has been clear, but you've been picking up so much slack that no one's noticed. It becomes clear that the two of you are just too different. You and that institution, that job, that friend, that lover, you're too different, and you're the one who is doing all the work to bridge the gap. So, like I said in the first part, endings are good. Sometimes you have to let things go, not because not because you didn't want it, but because things should be easier. And I know how that rings in your ears. That's part of why you can get into some pretty precarious situations, because that work hard thing and things worth having are worth working hard for, that is very healthy. Okay, it's great. But I hope you can also see, excuse me, where there is a downfall there. There's a downside that can lead to a downfall there, right? So if you've decided that all good things are hard to do and you have to work really hard for them and on them, then you may stay in a situation where you are doing all the work because it matches with your belief system. That's dangerous, right? So right now, endings are good. If you've been doing all the work, stop. Will it hurt? Yes. Does a sword need to be used? Absolutely. Will you regret it? Four of Cups? Of course you will. But just because you end up regretting something doesn't mean it wasn't the right thing to do. Now, people continue to misread you. But on the 14th, something interesting happens. You realize something, you hear something, somebody comes back around. Somehow, where there was regret and pain, healing and wholeness shows up. Now, does that mean it's actually that person? No, you could be in the shower and just realize something about it. Or it could be that person. It's not about that. It's about the epiphany that comes with it. It is that moment where perhaps you become self-aware. What was my part in it? How do I look from the outside? And a creature like you, the more responsibility, the better. Right? So take as much responsibility as you can, but also understand that now it's time to move forward from that pain. Whatever pain you're still holding on to, it's a very good chance after the 14th that it will be healed. Hopefully by some knowing that comes over you. So we're looking forward to that. But even then, even when you think you know exactly what's up, it's important to ask your friends, your family members, for their advice. Excuse me. You are not quite yourself right now, and I think they would be a great source of advice and help for you. They can tell you what's really there as you're going through this process of breaking down so many illusions and unearthing this authentic self. There's so many mirrors, so much smoke. You need someone outside of it all. Someone that you can ask, am I being like this, or is this really how it seems, or Is this person, what do you think? Are they what they seem? Without having that unanimous decision from the people you love, don't move ahead with anything right now. It's not that you can't rely on your own judgment. It's just that you can't rely on your own judgment right now. Because there's this, battle going on. The battle between ego and humility. How does one relish in one's capability? How does one celebrate one's effectiveness and not give in to ego? And not then start to brag and boast? How does one remain humble and not fall into despair or feel like nothing? Right? These are the extremes. And January wants you to find the nuance in this. And I think that last row makes it really clear. You have a choice. You can give in, not care how people see you, not give a damn about self-awareness. Say whatever you want, do whatever you want, let the chips fall where they may. Or, once again, you have been given the joyous opportunity to evolve. And for a lot of you, what this means is going back to something that you thought had to be a part of your life, or perhaps you were even really grateful for, up until the middle of January, and then it hits you, boom, oh my God, this was never good for me. Now remember, you can realize that someone's no good for you and still love them. But it's really important that you understand that you can love people who are not good for you. And then you take that knowledge and you act on it. When you start to feel like you're completely isolated because absolutely no one can understand anything you're saying, you can't express your feelings, you can't even express why you want to go in which direction. When you get to that point, crawl into that hermit energy and ride it out. Be patient, be calm, be quiet. Use every opportunity or obstacle that you come across as a way to deepen your awareness of self. How are you reacting? Why is that the reaction? What would happen if? Now, if you look at that top row here, there's also that Aquarius energy and that King of Cups together. So it's romance, but it's also, that romance of figuring out exactly what you want. The star is like when you can see it in your head. Like, I'm going to be in this moment and it's going to look like this and I'm going to look like this and this is what I'm going to be wearing and this is going to be the vibe. And it's a great time to do that. But it's very hard to manifest effectively if you have an ego about it. Because what you have to understand is that ultimately your ego doesn't want you to manifest anything. Your ego wants you to stay right where you are so it can justify its existence. Your ego doesn't like evolution. Your ego doesn't like change. Your ego doesn't want you to succeed. That's what I'm trying to get through to you. It's very nefarious because it sounds like it's something, it sounds like something that wants to help you, doesn't it? And if used properly, pick a plate from here, put it here, out, this thing is pointy, don't go near it. If used properly, very effective. But if left to run wild, it will absolutely sabotage you. Understand that. Your ego does not want you to win. Because if you win, you're going to change. And if you change, there's a high probability that you will change for the better. meaning that you will have less ego. So why would the ego support anything that may destroy it? So you have been in many situations that were all wrapped up in a bow for you, and your ego destroyed them, all the while making you think that you had done the right thing. It always comes with that healthy dose of self-righteousness, you know? Right? We'll talk more about it in the extended. I love you, love you, love you. I'll see you in the extended right now. Personal readings, live readings, the Year of the Tiger, Lunar New Year celebrations, everything's below. Mwah.